Hey up everyone, welcome to the Rugby League History channel. Today on the channel I'll be doing my tips and predictions for round 15 of the 2025 NRL season. Last time out I only got 2 incorrect, one of the best tipping rounds I've had this year. Let's see how many we get right in round 15. And the first match to kick us off is on Thursday night. It's between Cronulla, Sutherland and St George. This one's being played at Shark Park. This is the local derby and one of the underrated rivalries in the NRL in my personal opinion. Some people don't get the rivalry or understand it. I think to really truly understand it you have to be a Cronulla or St George supporter, but there is a lot of bad blood between the two clubs, little brother against big brother. Now if you count St George and St George Illawarra as the same club as I do, I don't really acknowledge the joint venture at all. There's been 114 meetings between the two clubs since 1967. 57 wins to Cronulla, 54 wins to St George in total. However, Cronulla's dominated the fixture in recent years. They've won 9 meetings in a row against St George. Last time out, St George conceded 50 points against Redcliffe. It were a diabolical display and they were awful in defence. And as for Cronulla, they weren't much better. The last 2 outings that they've had, they've been terrible. They had 40 points put on them against second string Eastern Suburbs side, you could say, and then against New Zealand they were beaten by 40 points again. So Cronulla went from contenders to pretenders in the space of 2 weeks in a lot of people's opinions. Both teams are desperate to make amends for their woeful displays last week and the week previous to that in Cronulla's case, but I'm going to go for Cronulla to win this game by 1 to 12 points. I think this one's going to be another fiery derby between these two clubs, but I think just on paper Cronulla will be too strong for them, so Cronulla to win by 1 to 12 points. And the only match on the Friday is between Gold Coast and Manly Warringah. This one's being played at Seabourn Super Stadium on the Gold Coast. These two sides have met 28 times since 2007. Manly's won 16, Gold Coast have won 12. Manly's won the last 2 meetings between these two clubs, and looking back through the history, especially the last couple of years, there's been some very high scoring encounters. Now the men from the Glitter Strip, the Gold Coast, they're sat bottom of the table at the moment, and I think deservedly so. By my calculations, it's been, out of the 15 rounds that we've had so far, Gold Coast in 9 games that they've played have conceded over 24 points or more in a game. I mean, that's shocking. They can't defend to save their lives, and if they don't fix up their defence soon, it's going to result in another wooden spoon for the men from the Glitter Strip, because okay, you're scoring 20 plus points in a game, but then you're conceding 24 points, 30 points, 40 points a game. What's the point? You have to fix the defence, otherwise they're going to keep losing matches. And as for Manly, I'm pretty sure they've all had a very hard look in the mirror over the last week, losing against Newcastle. They're up 16 now, and I think maybe the players just went, this is too easy, switched off, put the cue on the rack, and Newcastle came back and won the match in golden point extra time. So embarrassing from Manly, but they've got Daly Cherry Evans there, who were dropped by Queensland. You've got Tom Trbojevic, you've got some of the other players that are normal starters for Manly in the squad for this week against the Gold Coast. So I'm going to tip Manly to win this game. I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I'm going to go for Manly to win by 1 to 12 points. I can't tip the Gold Coast at the moment with how they're going and how they're defending. I just can't. So Manly to win this game, I should say, by 1 to 12 points. And the first match on Saturday is between Newcastle and Sydney Roosters, or if you're born before 1995, Eastern Suburbs. This match has been played at Marathon Stadium in Newcastle. There's been 61 meetings between the two clubs since 1988. East have won 38, Newcastle's won 21 times. In recent times, Sydney Roosters have dominated the fixture. They've won 8 of the last 10 meetings. Looking at the team lists, Sam Walker's back in the Sydney Roosters side after being out for a very long time with injury, and Jackson Hastings, he's divisive as a shovel going through a pumpkin. He's back for Newcastle after being exiled in reserve grade for quite a considerable amount of time. Newcastle last time out, they were down 16-0. They were booed off by their own supporters, and they came back in the second half and won. But how many times is a team going to give up a 16-0 lead like that at half time? not very often. I still think Newcastle are wooden spoon candidates. If you look at what they've done over the last 10 games or so, hasn't been good reading. As for Eastern Suburbs, it doesn't seem to matter who's out or who's in, the team steps up. I think that they'll do so again against Newcastle. I think Sydney Roosters will win this game, and I think they'll win this game by 13 plus on Saturday. And the other game on Saturday is between North Queensland and Redcliffe, or the Dolphins. This one's being played at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. Now, with Redcliffe and North Queensland, they've played each other 4 times, and there's been 2 wins each. And in both of Redcliffe's travels up to Townsville, they've won on both occasions. Last time out, Redcliffe recorded the biggest win in their history so far, well, in the NRL anyway. They put 50 points on St George. As for North Queensland, they had a loss down there in Melbourne, where the hoodoo at Amy Park continues. For this match, there's going to be a couple of players out from both sides for State of Origin. With Redcliffe, they're a funny side. When they're on, they're on. And we saw that against St George, where they put 50 points on them. We saw it against Melbourne as well, where they just hit another level and just put on a rapid amount of points, just like that. And then I've seen it again last year. They scored 8 tries in 20 minutes against Parramatta and Darwin. So they're a funny side, Redcliffe. When they're on, and they're very hard to stop. This is going to be an interesting clash, this one. I think a lot of tipsters are going to be sat on the fence for this game, but I don't know, I just have a feeling about Redcliffe at the moment. I think that they can win again up there in Townsville, so I'm going to go for Redcliffe to win this match by 1 to 12 points on Saturday. And the final match to close out the round is on Sunday. It's between South Sydney and Canterbury Bankstown. This one's being played at Stadium Australia. These two sides have met 170 times since 1935. There's been 81 wins to South, 85 wins to Canterbury, and 4 draws. South Sydney have done really well against Canterbury in recent times. They've won 7 of the last 10 meetings against them. There's people out there that consider this to be a rivalry. I'm going to do a video on this. It's part of my rivalry video series. Stay tuned for that one. But these two sides met earlier in the year, and Canterbury kept South Sydney scoreless. It was the biggest non-grand final, non-finals crowd ever in New South Wales Rugby League / NRL history. There was 65,000 there for the Good Friday clash. And it also begs the question, this has been asked by a few people on YouTube, where have all these Canterbury fans been when they've been shite and they haven't been winning? Are they only showing up because they're having a good year? I think the answer to that is yes. Because I can guarantee you the moment they start losing again, there'll be no street parties, there'll be no big crowds, there'll be no any of that. It'll be back to normal again. Lots of empty blue seats at Stadium Australia. But getting back to who I think is going to win this game, both sides are affected by State of Origin for this one. Both teams have players coming back in as well. I've tipped Canterbury before. I tipped them against Redcliffe and they let me down massively. Is it raining on Sunday? I'm not too sure. I don't live in Australia or Sydney, so I don't know if it's raining. If it's raining, I'm going to tip South Sydney. But if it stays fine, I'm going to go for Canterbury to win this game by 1 to 12 points. I think they'll have too much for South Sydney on Sunday. So that concludes my tips for round 15 of the 2025 NRL season. Who are you tipping this round? Who have you got the win? Score margins? I'll be interested to know. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks to everyone that's been tuning in for the videos. It's much appreciated. I got a few people viewing the video last week and liking and commenting. It's much appreciated once again. And of course, I don't apologise for the things I said about Canterbury earlier in the video. I mean, where were you when you were shite? I'd be singing it there if I lived in Australia. Where were you when you were shite? Anyways, this has been Rugby League History, and I'll catch you all later in the next one. Ta-ra for now.